In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. When I was 15, I ate a dog biscuit. And maybe I should specify, when I was 15, my brother tricked me into eating a dog biscuit. He was unusually generous, and he gave me a fancy French chocolate, which I told him wasn't very good. So he told me it was an acquired taste and I should try another one. When I followed him into the kitchen and saw him grabbing another, I realized that the box with the poodle on it was definitely not fancy French chocolates. And I can't say for certain, but since then I've never been drawn to learning the French language. Other languages, yes. Right? You can't blame me. In college, it was Russian. After college, it was Japanese. At the beginning of the year, it's been Hindi, but never French. And this really hasn't posed a problem for me, except for those times when I want to say a French word and have no idea how to pronounce it. So for wine, for example, I avoid anything with Pinot in it. Am I saying it right? Probably not. Because, I don't want to get myself in a position where I'm saying it wrong. So I stick to Malbecs. It's easier to pronounce, and honestly, it tastes better. So Les Mis will always be Les Mis to me because I don't know how to say the rest of the word. And really, the only word that I'm comfortable saying in French is déjà vu. The strange feeling that you've been somewhere before or you've experienced something before that you don't think you possibly could have ever experienced. Studying this week's gospel lesson, I had such a strong sense of déjà vu that I started going through all of my previous sermons thinking, did I preach on this? I swear I must have preached on this. Or is it just because it's so familiar and it's so similar to other passages that we've seen on Jesus and Simon Peter? And I couldn't find it, so I don't think I preached on it. So I'm just going to say it's because it's similar. It seems very familiar and very close to the story at the beginning of Luke, when we read about how Jesus probably first met Simon Peter. He'd been teaching on the shore of Lake Gennesaret, and when he got into the boat, he asked the fishermen to drop the freshly washed nets back into the water for a catch. Simon Peter tells him, yeah, we can do that, but we've been fishing all night. We just finished cleaning the nets, and we didn't catch anything. And then their catch was so large that it started to sink the two boats that were attempting to bring it in. Simon Peter saw this, fell to his knees, and told Jesus, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." 3 years later has brought us to today's gospel. 3 years, and a lot has happened in the life of Simon Peter and Jesus. There are a lot of stories that we've heard about. I only picked a couple of them. There are more. There are even more that were never written, but to highlight some of them, we remember the time that Jesus healed Simon's mother-in-law. We remember the time that Simon rebuked Jesus for saying that he was going to be put to death, and we remember how Jesus kind of put him in his place. We remember how Simon Peter accompanied Jesus up the side of a mountain to pray. We remember that he was with Jesus when Jesus raised Jairus' daughter from the dead. He told Jesus he would die before he would ever deny him. And he was there to cut off the ear of the high priest's slave. A lot of history. And then we heard about how Simon Peter did the thing that he said he would never do, and he denied Jesus 3 times. From preschool or earlier, especially if we grew up with brothers and sisters, we're taught to say sorry for the things that we do to others that hurt them. Maybe it's something like we hit someone, and if it's a sibling, I'm sure they had it coming. Maybe we took away a toy. Maybe it was both. I think it's probably things that we've all experienced at one time or another. And we also know really well the difference between a heartfelt sorry and a sorry that's just, I'll say sorry because I'm being forced to. And I think we're also very familiar with the sense of even when we say sorry and we really mean it, and even when we've received forgiveness, there are times when we've got kind of that residual icky feeling of regret of, man, I wish I never did that. And that is what I believe we find with Simon Peter in today's gospel. Although Jesus had already begun to show himself to his disciples, he showed himself to Mary, he showed himself to some of the other disciples. This time, things were still just kind of different. Yeah, Jesus was back, but it was different than before. So Simon Peter and some of the other disciples went back to the thing that they knew best. They went back to go fishing. And after a night of fishing, they came back with their nets empty. Then some guy standing on the shore told them to put their nets out back into the water, and they caught so many fish that they couldn't haul it in. Deja vu. The disciples then recognized Jesus. After coming ashore, Jesus makes them breakfast. I don't know if it was intentional, but I can't help feel like we were in this kind of spot not that long ago, maybe in an upper room when Jesus broke bread and gave them a new commandment to love one another. Here, Jesus breaks bread and gives it to them. And then he asks Peter for the first time, "Do you love me?" And Peter tells him, "Yes, Lord, you know it." And Jesus asks him a second time, "Do you love me?" And Peter again responds, "Yes, Lord, you know it." And Jesus asks the third time, "Do you love me?" And Peter feels hurt and replies, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." I'll admit my first reaction to this passage when I read it was a little bit of frustration with Jesus. I thought, wow, Jesus, yeah, we get it. Simon Peter betrayed you 3 times, and now you're making him repeat 3 times that he loves you. You're drilling him. Why are you doing this? I'm so frustrated. And that's when I knew I needed to dig a little bit further, really for 3 reasons. One is I am wrong a lot of the time. I am wrong maybe all of the time when I assume I know what someone else's motivation is, why they do the things that they do. 2, we were forgiven once, and so I didn't think it was necessary to ask forgiveness 3 times by saying, "I love you." And then 3, I've never known Jesus to rub someone's nose in the fact that they sinned. It's not the character of someone who would be willing to die for someone else's sin. And as it turned out, it all had to do with the word love. A simple word in English which we use for everything. I love you, I love coffee, I love chocolate, I love camping or kayaking or dogs or the Packers or the Bears or bananas. Really love bananas that are covered with frozen chocolate. We use it for everything, right? It turns out that the love that we read about in the gospel is more complex than the word love that we know. The words that Jesus and Peter were using were 2 different words for love. And I'm actually going to ask Father Ralph to come up with me, and we are going to reenact the scene with maybe a little bit clearer language on what they were actually saying. And Father Ralph is going to be Jesus, and I'll be Peter.
Simon Peter, do you love me? Really love me? Perfectly, unconditionally, sacrificially? Do you love me?
Yes, Lord, I like you.
Feed my sheep, Peter. Simon Peter, do you love me? Really love me more than all these?
Yes, Lord, you know that I like you.
Feed my sheep, Peter. Simon Peter, Are you my friend?
And this is the part where we read that Simon Peter is hurt. It's almost like he feels a little bit hurt that all of a sudden Jesus downgraded this unconditional love to using the same word that he'd been using all along, saying like. Maybe started to wonder, does Jesus love me less than he did before? Just remember, though, this is Jesus that we're talking about. If you've ever felt like that too, we're talking about Jesus. We're talking about somebody who was willing to die on the cross for everyone's sin, even if he wasn't liked by them. Even if you didn't like Jesus, he was going to die for you. Even if you hated him, he was going to die for you. And the thing that you'll find is the longer you walk with Jesus, the easier it's going to be to answer him when he asks you, do you love me? So that you can say, yes, I love you unconditionally, sacrificially, the way that you taught me to. And then when you turn to your neighbor or your coworker, or maybe somebody that you have a little bit of conflict with, then the conversation becomes, do you love me? And you can say, yeah, I love you. Even if you don't like me, I love you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll play Father Aaron. If you'd like to send in a question on YouTube or Facebook, she'll do YouTube, I'll do Facebook.
Let me grab my phone.
And if you want to text Father Aaron, who is not here, and say hi, text it to that number.
So what you're saying is you're encouraging everyone to blow up his phone.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. We had a second sermon conversation after the 8 o'clock service at the bottom of the steps.
Yeah.
Somebody asked questions about the language used in the conversation between Jesus and Peter. And so for the first time Jesus asks, he uses a word in Greek, agape, which is a self-sacrificing love. And Peter does not respond with the same word. Philadelphia is called the city of brotherly love, from the Greek word phileo. And that's the word Peter responds with. And so Jesus again asks Peter, do you love me? Agape, which is a deeper spiritual love. And again, Peter says, I love you the same way with the word phileo. The third time, and this is the kicker, and I got this from Father Kamal, our friend, who calls this passage the second incarnation. Because Jesus changes his language for Peter. Mm-hmm. He doesn't say, Peter, get up here. Jesus, in flesh, again comes to Peter's level, to our level, and uses the word phileo, do you love me? Feed my sheep. So God continues to reach to where we are. It's pretty amazing.
To reach to where we are and to love us at where we're at and to accept us with where we're at.
Mm-hmm. And to call us,
yep.
To follow, because that's how this passage ends, follow. Yep. But we're not doing it perfectly right now. There's probably one day when we will, but we're not there yet. So in the meantime, Jesus is pretty merciful with us.
Things are quiet on the YouTube.
They're quiet here too. All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
And take this home with you. You know, in these situations that you get in where it's difficult, Jesus is asking, do you love me? And how do we love in that situation now? Thank you.